Rubric. So this is something how we evaluate content, whether it be homebrew or official content, as we did last week. And it basically boils down to 5 specific criteria rather for evaluation. There's space. Is there room in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons for this? Does it like stomp on any other class that does something similar, or monster, or what have you? Balance, is it well balanced? Pretty self-explanatory. Playability, does adding this to the game disrupt anything, right? Is it tedious to keep track of things? Could it be frustrating for a player or dungeon master? Design, is the design elegant? Is it easy to understand? And is it simple and easy to understand? And flavor, does this inspire you to want to use this content in your own games, whether as a player or as a dungeon master?
Yeah. And these are the things that we think make every homebrew needs to have all of this, or not every homebrew that's intended
if you're
to
making
be
this for other people,
a quality for other people to use, like, because there's a lot of stuff that I've made that uses almost none of this because I knew it would work in my home game, but something for other people, as a well put way.
If you're running it for the home game, flavor is by far the most important here. It needs to really inspire your players.
Yeah, true.
But if you're making this for the broader D&D audience, say making a race option that you want to put out in the open on the DM's Guild or something, all of this becomes very important for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But Pete, let's jump right in. Segment 1 of this evening. I'm really excited. How about you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, I'm really excited too. This is another worldly patron I came up with called the Coven, which is to say your patron is a coven of hags, which is
what is a coven?
That's a great question. It's before I read the actual flavor text, just so people, in case anyone doesn't know, a coven is a group of 3 hags, and in the lore of D&D, 3 hags can form a coven together. The number is always that, because the idea is if 2 hags get into a disagreement, the third one will
be able to break the tie.
Yes. And when a coven comes together, they also gain additional powers and abilities by kind of combining their strengths. They get mechanically a bunch of extra spell slots, which is a thing for like dungeon masters to play around with. But I kind of like to think of it in the broader sense of more the flavor, which is just they grow more powerful when they kind of combine in this trifecta of hags or witches, is another way of looking at them.
Yeah, and that's what hags are. They're effectively witches, right? They are your classic
witches in the Macbeth or Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz sense, not the Harry Potter sense.
Yeah, they're not. It's going to be Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley they're also almost always, if not always, female, correct? I think that's one kind of defining characteristic of hags.
That is a defining feature of hags, as they are female.
But Pete,
in Forgotten Realms, I think male hags are just warlocks.
Yeah, I think you can get a male like a counterpart, I think, but I don't know what it is necessarily because they're just not prevalent in the lore.
Yeah, it's weird. But yes, this is another worldly patron where the idea is your patron, rather than being like a single entity, like an archdevil or an archfey, it is a coven. Your patron is 3 hags, kind of at once here. And let me read you the flavor text here. Your patron is a coven of precisely 3 hags, wicked beings that seek to extinguish mortal joy and revelry wherever it may be found. There are many types of hags, each terrible in their own way. The coven may be made up of night hags, devious soulmongers that seek to corrupt the hearts of righteous humans, mighty anise hags that delight in crushing victims in their vice-like hugs, or perhaps a collective of different hags, each with their own cruel goals and ideals. Although you may choose to act as a force of good in the world, the aspirations of the Coven are ultimately evil. They have granted you power for the sake of sowing malice in the world, and that power often manifests as a curse in those who wield it. You may roll a d8 or choose one of the Coven's curses when you select this subclass at first level, if you wish to do so. This curse cannot be dispelled by the remove curse spell or similar magic. So I added in this little Coven's curse thing as it's something that I've seen done a few times. The recent Ranger subclass that we read over had something like this where you got a little Fey blessing. But I thought it would be cool if the power of the Coven kind of warped you a little bit and, had these results. Jeremy, do you want to read some of the?
Yeah, I love these. This is probably to me the most. I mean, this is a very good subclass. I'm just going to say that it's very good. I'm very happy. I'm very excited that we have this to share. Thank you for making it. But this singular table is probably the most exciting thing to me because I love the idea.
Kind of to me too.
I love it. It's just so inspired. And this is the kind of thing that I feel like looking at these gives you, like, inspires you to make characters. And that's why it's so cool. So the options are on a roll, you roll a d8 or 8 options. The curse are, a few of your hairs turn gray and wispy each time you grow angry. Excellent. It's a very fey, kind of dark, whimsy feel to that, which is, like Frog was saying in chat, witch hags are fey witches.
Yes, yes.
You have a hideous wart somewhere on your body. No matter how you try to remove it, it always grows back within minutes. The scent of fresh flowers is a sickening stench in your nostrils. When you sleep outdoors, you always find yourself covered in spider webs upon awakening. Non-magical clothing you wear becomes torn and tattered within days. I love that. If you laugh too heartily, you have a terrible fit of coughing and wheezing. Pete, am I a hag?
I might be too by that metric, actually.
Babies begin to cry when you come too near to them, and under moonlight, your skin turns a sickly shade of gray or green. Just,
Yeah, I really
so
like
good.
this. One thing that I would note, and I think this is a good overall note, is I've never seen this before, but I put a caveat on this, which is if you don't like this, you don't have to have one of these curses, and you can just choose not to take this feature. This is really fun to me, and I like this kind of, like, negative drawback style of play, but I know it's not for everyone, so if you don't want this, you're not required to have, like, you don't have to have a wart if you don't want one.
It's kind of like how the backgrounds in 5th edition D&D, right, have bonds, ideals, and flaws. You don't have to go into your background and take one of each or whatever it recommends. Those are there to inspire you in ways to play your character, and that's exactly what these are meant to do. And hopefully they inspire you guys if you decide to play these.
While we're talking about this is such a good ambiance for me, talking about hags. My house just, again, shook with thunder. Very, very Macbeth right now, this vibe.
So we follow up that little Coven's curse with a bit of a discussion about your relationship with the Coven, and we had a similar thing with our great and all-powerful genie subclass.
I borrowed this from Jeremy because it was a great idea.
And all this is really saying is, unlike like an Archfey, which is an incredibly powerful, whimsical creature, right, from the Feywild, or like an Archfiend, which is, you could be like Asmodeus in the Nine Hells, a Coven of Hags is kind of like approachable. Like, you as a party, as players, may battle hags throughout your adventures, may battle a Coven of Hags. And that the Coven that grants you power are probably a step above your normal old hag, right? These guys are kind of the hags of legend. Like, for example, I think you give Baba Yaga, right?
Yeah, this is more the Baba Yaga, the Morgana. Morgan Le Fay, is that what it is? From Arthur's Court. Probably more that type of witch or hag rather than...
I love Raz's comment, curse you melt when water is thrown on you. I would love the idea of adding some kind of aversion to water to that curse list.
That would be a funny one. There's just so much room. There's so much room on that list for hag curses. No, most of those are usually a D6, but I feel like we could get up to a D12 of cool hag curses.
But yeah, basically what this whole little collective sidebar is, it's all just saying, think about this kind of stuff and talk to your dungeon master about this, because nothing is more awkward for a dungeon master than a player hits like 6th level and goes, oh, I plane shift to my hag. It's like, I wasn't ready for that at all. What? Like, out of nowhere.
I like Frogs. Players find the Coven. Everyone draws their weapons. The Warlock, Mom, I'm back.
Mom. Yeah. But this is just giving you some food for thought. And it's both as a player and as a DM. A lot of these questions, especially under this collective part, right? Your patron is unique in that it's a group of creatures rather than a single individual. What type of personalities does each hag have? Do they usually agree with each other, or do they bicker? Do they have some expectations of you? You know, asking these kinds of questions and thinking about them as a DM can really help to, I think, give a more enriching experience to the player who's going to play this class. So having these kind of ideas in there, very cool.
Yeah, and that's a thing that I imagine.
Not enough
that's
people do
something that
this.
me and you, Jeremy, will be probably putting in every Warlock subclass we ever do. Now that we have this, because it's just a cool idea.
I don't know, like if we do something like crazy, right? Like, I don't know, the Force, right? It's like, oh, life is my patron, right? I don't know if we'd have something like that, but yeah, if it's like a tangible being, that makes a lot of sense.
A couple ideas already from Ive. It's nice to hear you being excited. I already have an idea where the hags are the three fates from Greek mythology. That could be very cool, as well as if I was to make a Bitter Sisters hag, which is a D&D time reference. The Coven of Two.
Well, it's funny, there was the third sister in the Bitter Sisters. The other two just turned her into the cauldron.
But
so there was really only two. But let's talk about this next
features on this guy. Yeah. So the spell list for, of course, every Warlock gets an expanded spell list of spell options that they're able to add or to choose from. I always just, Jeremy, do you always just wish that they just got the spells on the spell list?
Oh, of course. We wish that's how it worked, but that's not how it works in 5th edition.
Yeah, it's not how it works. So it's spells that the Warlock wouldn't normally get, and those spells are Inflict Wounds and Sleep at 1st level. At 2nd level, Alter Self and Augury. Alter Self was one Jeremy just recommended a little while ago for the witch that makes themselves look like the beautiful young maiden, which is a classic witch trope. And Augury is, roll the bones is so witchy. 3rd, Bestow Curse and Lightning Bolt. Bestow Curse, I think, is obvious, and Lightning Bolt is actually one of the spells that Covens get. So it's a direct reference to the way that they're run in 5e. And the same thing is true of Phantasmal Killer and Polymorph, although Polymorph in particular, I think people would agree with even if it wasn't on that list, which is, turn people into toads is a witch thing, which will come back around. Then at 5th level, Animate Objects for the witches that want to make teacups dance and stuff like that, and Contagion.
Yeah, and I see Frogs mentioning they get Bestow Curse through Sign of Ill Omen. Is that a... Yeah, see, Sculptor Flesh, Sign of Ill Omen, those are invocations. This is a little different than an invocation, just because part of the spell list, it doesn't take up one of your invocation slots. So we don't see this really as an issue overlapping those.
Yes, only if they were... Yeah, only if they were on the actual Warlock spell list. And it's kind of actually nice because things like Sculptor of Flesh in Warlock design I actually really dislike because it's wasting a whole invocation on an option rather than giving you power. So I kind of like that it stomps on that toe.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about this next feature, though, this Eye of the Coven. I love this because it ties into, this is a very common thing that covens will have, right? They'll create objects that tether them together, and this is one way of doing it. You mind if I take this guy, Pete?
Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, your coven has taught you to create a hag eye, a magical item made from a real eye, coated in varnish, and often fitted to a pendant or other wearable item. A hag eye has an AC of 10, 1 hit point, and dark vision with a radius of 60 feet. As an action, you or a hag within your coven can choose to look through the eye and see what it sees. During this time, you are considered to be blind with regard to your own sight. While the eye within 100 feet of you, you can cause it to appear in your hand as a bonus action. If the eye is lost or destroyed, you can perform a 1-hour ritual to create a new hag eye using an actual eye as material component. The eye is consumed as part of the ritual. I really love this.
Yeah.
I just really love this.
This is a direct reference. Ivalon says the eye also reminds me of the Fates who share one eye. Yes. Dungeons and Dragons kind of took that from that Greek myth, and they made it so that covens, because this is very much pulled from an ability that covens get in the monster manual. which is they can create these eyes, and it says that they gift the eye to a minion. In this case, you're the minion that they gift the eye to, which I think is cool as well. And then you get another feature at first level, and it kind of scales with you a little bit, and that is also at first level, and again at 6th, 10th, and 14th levels, you learn a spell with the ritual tag of a level that you can cast from the druid spell list. You can cast spells gained by this feature as rituals. The chosen spells count as warlock spells for you and do not count against your number of known spells. Additionally, you gain proficiency in the herbalism and poisoners kits. So for anyone unfamiliar with the list of druid rituals,
these are really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot on here that are very much in the wheelhouse of the hag coven. Some ones that are off the top of my head are obviously detect magic is something a hag would do, or speaking with animals. But ones that I really like are like beast messenger. The hag like talks to a rat and like tells it to go off and say something. At second level, they get locate animals and plants, which I can see them like, you know, I need to hunt the wolf to make a potion from their fang. But the one that I love is Skywrite. So you can be the Wicked Witch of the West and write Dorothy in the sky over Oz.
It's very cool. I mean, it's just a fun little. You get 4. I mean, throughout the whole class, you get 4 little rituals. Just fun little extra things.
Yeah, which is nice for warlocks too, because you're only Eldritch blasting. So having those kind of more like I can always do this is nice on warlocks.
I can see in chat was appreciative of the Toil and Trouble name.
I've mentioned Macbeth a couple times, and there's no way I was going to not reference that rhyme somewhere in this class. But I'd like to take, this is my favorite feature on here.
Please
so
take
I'd like to take this one. At 6th level, the Coven has taught you to create powerful potions with ingredients taken from freshly killed creatures. You can spend 1 minute harvesting an ingredient from a creature that died within the last hour, such as an eye, a wing, or a tooth. You cannot harvest more than 1 ingredient in this way from the remains of the same creature, and this feature cannot be used on constructs or undead. During a short rest, you can take an ingredient harvested in this way and concoct a potion from it. Drinking that potion grants the following benefits for 1 hour. And they are, you have advantage on wisdom perception checks made to detect hidden creatures of the type used to brew this potion. Spells and effects that distinguish creatures by type detect you as the type of creature used to brew this potion. And the next time you would take damage from a creature of the type used to brew this potion, you have resistance to that damage. Once this effect of the potion has been used, all effects of the potion immediately end. And then a creature other than you who drinks this potion gains no benefits and must succeed on a Constitution saving throw against your Warlock spell save DC, or be poisoned until the end of your next turn. A potion brewed by this feature remains magical for 24 hours or until you use this feature again, at which point it becomes a vial of basic poison.
Very fun here.
This, like I said, this is my favorite feature on the class, because this is the one that feels the most like you're really getting into that witch aesthetic, where, you know, like you take your Eye of Newt and you put it into a potion, and now you can like smell where the wolves are in the forest. I was picturing the one that was the most evocative to me was I was picturing a hag drinking angel blood to like sneak past the planetars into the gates of Elysium, or some sick stiff shit like that.
Yeah, no, it's just excellent. Just very cool. These are they're fairly minor bonuses, but I think they're pretty on par with what most warlocks get at 6th level. And even beyond that, it's so flavorful, so rich. I personally love the idea of like harvesting parts of monsters and using them to do things. And this is such a clean, like going back to our fantasy rubric here, the design here, is the design elegant? Yep, all you have to worry about is the creature type. Don't have to worry about what you harvest. There's no DC to harvest. You can just take whatever you want, whatever's flavorful to you, whether you want it to be the eye of the dragon or, right, the, whatever you decide.
And that was also intentional, because one thing about this is this feature can be kind of low-key or really kind of brutal, and I didn't want someone who was squeamish to feel like they had to pluck the eyes out of creatures, and I like the idea of them being like, I'm just gonna like cut a little bit of their hair off and use that as an option if that's your degree of comfort with this.
Absolutely. And that's just what do you call it? It's not necessarily good design, but it's like considerate design. I think it is good design, but
it's not necessary to do it that way, but that's just how I wanted to do it and how I thought people would like to use it.
You got any of that hag poison?
I take a toenail. Can I do a toenail? You can do whatever you want, and that's the point. Frog was asking before, could you do an actual, can the actual eye be a glass eye? I think that's just a question of flavor there. Like, you could absolutely probably use a glass eye. It wouldn't make too much difference. But that's that feature. You want to do turn to toad, Jeremy?
Yeah. I mean, this is another, like, come on, this is so iconic. Turn to toad. Iconic. Beginning at 10th level, you may cast the Polymorph spell at your Pact Magic spell level using your Warlock spell save DC without expending a spell slot if the chosen form is a tiny beast that doesn't have a fly speed, such as a spider, newt, or toad, and the target is a creature that is of a challenge rating less than or equal to half your Warlock level, round down. The Polymorph spell does not need to be on your spell list of known spells to use this feature, and you may use it a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier before finishing a long rest. So basically, like 4 or 5 times a day, you can take some, creature that's considerably weaker than you, the townsfolk, for example, and turn them into a toad. And I love that.
V-Money asks, why all the limitations? Because if you let people like polymorph just at will, it's gonna get kind of wild for one thing. Imagine if you could turn your fighter into a Tyrannosaurus Rex 5 times a day. I think it really needs to be, for one thing, it's kind of iconic for witches to turn people into toads and small creatures, but also for balance kind of issues, turning people into big creatures is going to get wild. And the challenge rating thing is so that you can't spam it over and over again against, like, say, the boss of an encounter, because I could see it hitting a playability issue if you came across the big dragon and then your witch just polymorphed them over and over again because they can keep doing it. This isn't a once per day thing.
I think the real key here is the flavor, right? The aesthetic, the design we're really going for, right, is the witch turning the townsperson into a frog, right? We've given it a little bit more versatility, especially out of combat. Also, V-Bunny, you don't have to be sarcastic in the chat, man. That's kind of rude. So, like, I get it. You have some issues with the feature, but let's try to be a little bit more respectful. It's not a useless feature against the dragon. If the dragon has lieutenants, that's a thing to use it for. One of the things Pete had in mind, we were talking about earlier, right, is the Narzugon rides in on its nightmare, right? The fiendish creature.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
And you turn the nightmare into a toad, and the Narzugon falls down, and that's the battle. Obviously, against a single big monster, this doesn't have a lot of applicability, but there are a lot of features that do that. So,
hello, Raventail, welcome. And Blood, I think it'd be nice if you could also cast it on yourself with the same form limitations. I was considering that for a while. I don't know, maybe. I didn't want it to be too, like, all-purpose useful, like the ability to, fit through every small thing kind of stacked onto it already. I think this is a pretty, like, actually aggressive feature in terms of balance.
Well,
like,
a cat is a tiny beast without a fly speed. So you could turn someone into a cat with this.
Yeah, you could turn people into a cat. Crowley was asking me about that because he was reading this before. This is something that has been, like, looked at and gone through beforehand. This isn't just first draft. And I was talking to Crowley about that. He was like, well, I want to turn people into a rabbit. And yeah, you can absolutely do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the point is of this feature, right? It's you can turn weak creatures into toads with relative ease. Yep. And it's not even necessarily weak. Half CR is pretty strong.
The idea
at 10th level, you're turning wyverns into toads. The
idea
it's not anything to shake a stick at.
You're never hitting the boss with this feature, but you're usually hitting one of their minions, even like one of their chief minions with this feature. Was the idea. And obviously that depends on encounter imbalance and stuff. And I also feel like this is the kind of thing where if your player had this, like I as a DM would put cool stuff for them to turn into a toad into my encounters. I think it has that kind of cleric-y vibe to a small extent. But
yeah, and it's kind of the deal where against a single big monster enemy, this isn't going to be the best the best option, and that's okay. Not everything is great. I mean, I know the Fiend Pact Warlock gets fire resistance, I think, at 10th level, and it's like, well, all right. If I'm up against like a Lich, was that really going to help me at all? No, but
yeah,
that's the nature of class features, right? They do a certain thing, and that's what they do.
Basically, every Warlock feature actually at 10th level gets a very niche resistance.
Yeah.
I think the old one is resistance to psychic damage, and you can't be like scryed or forced to read your mind.
Yeah, it does some funky stuff.
So this is, also it has a niche, but I think it's a broader net.
There are a couple of comments in chat. I see Blood Deuce asking, very nice if you could cast this on yourself. And I think there are a couple other folks. I think V-Bunny also mentioned that. And I guess basically, yeah, if you want to turn yourself into a toad, well, it just takes the polymorph spell. You can do it. It's on your spell list because the expanded spell list. So, that's an option for you if you want to. But
yeah. Let's talk the capstone here, and that is Witch's Intuition. When you've reached 14th level, your Coven has taught you the secrets of imbuing mundane items with magic. You gain the following features. You gain a flying speed of 50 feet while holding a wooden broom. You can cast the Scrying spell without expending a spell slot. You can use a pool of still water or a mirror in place of the spell's normal material components. And the last one, you can cast the Soul Cage spell without expending a spell slot. You can use a metal cauldron with a lid in place of the spell's normal material components. You can cast a spell using this feature even if the spell's not on your list of known spells, and once you've cast a spell using this feature, you may not cast that spell again until you finish a long rest. So you get a lot of the things that I think make witches iconic, and some of the things that they do. You always see hags and witches, like, the broom of flying, I mean, come on. Come on. But also, you always see them, like, looking at their mirror. Mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
If there was not a way in this class to fly around on a broom, something would be really wrong.
Yeah, I would have failed.
And, one of the things that we've considered with this, right, is a player character who's playing this Coven class, right, and who's got a dungeon master who's really playing into it. Maybe they've got a broom of flying by this point, right, a magical item that is pretty, it's an uncommon item. It's not that hard to come by in a lot of games. And, well, why would you want this feature? And the answer is, well, any wooden broom just works. You can just do it at any point with this thing. And that, I think that makes it work pretty well. I mean, that alone is a good enough reason for me to have this.
Agreed. And then the other stuff is just kind of gravy. Soul Cage is a pretty niche one, which I recommend. I feel like a lot of people are looking at Soul Cage and being like, oh yeah, I think I read that was on a spell list somewhere. And it's really cool. You could do things with it, like it's a bunch of healing. I wanted something on here that was a little bit combat relevant, so that they have something that isn't just utility on their higher level feature. It has a bunch of healing on it, but you can also do things like whisper into the Soul Cage and ask the soul that you've trapped, like, questions about, like, their life and stuff, which I think is very witchy. Like asking the escaped soul, like, where did you hide I don't know, whatever the scenario demands. But there's some really cool stuff on there. I recommend checking out the spell if you're not familiar with it.
Yeah, Soul Cage is a really weird one. Very, very underutilized, I think. It came out in, what, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, I think?
I believe it was Xanathar's Guide to Every... Is it? I thought
there were no spells.
I think that's a PHB spell, man.
No way. PHP? No way. No way.
I bet you $1. I'll Venmo it to you.
Done.
I'm not certain. I haven't gotten
there Guide to Everything.
Fuck! All right. Well, everyone, you'll see me right now on my phone for a moment while I Venmo Jeremy $1.
But yeah, anyway, this is a very fun little feature. It gives you a couple of cool spell options. And again, having the Scrying spell, having the Soul Cage spell, being able to fly without having to use the fly spell, these are ways that this subclass deals with a couple of the big issues, the fundamental problems that warlocks tend to run into. And that is, they only ever get like 3 spell slots of their pact magic. They get some Mystic Arcanums at later levels, but even those are really limited and one spell that you pick. This helps to really alleviate that by giving them some free castings for Scrying, for Soul Cage, and for these other spells. So really neat little addition there in a way that we kind of help to alleviate one of the core problems that Warlock players tend to face. Or it's not really a problem, but it kind of fits under that, what do you call it, the playability aspect, where it can be frustrating for Warlock players that don't have tons of spell options.
Yeah. Indeed.
But anyway,
that's the intent, certainly. And everyone wondering, Jeremy, you'll have $1. You got me.
Thank you. Blood was saying, I think there should definitely be a limitation on the usage of Soul Cage casting.
There's a 1 a day.
Yes, yeah, you can only use these once per day. Sorry, that was unclear there. Apologies, folks. Whoopsies.
Yep. You get a 1 Soul Cage and 1 Scrying per day. And then the flying speed is 50 feet. So, yeah, we're on the same vibe there, Blood Deuce. There's a lot going on in Soul Cage.
Yeah, it's funky.
And hello to you.
Things are going whack right now, guys.
Pardon?
Pardon?
I believe. I was just making sure I pronounced their name right, but I saw them popping in and saying hello, so I wanted to say hello.
Oh, hello, Adrenate.
Adrenate. I don't know why I thought it was Adironate.
I mean, it could be Adironate. I have no idea. Adironate. Let me know if we're saying your name. I apologize if we are.
Just Addy. Addy's much better.
God bless you.
Thank you.
But yeah,
we are competent.
This Coven is something that we've put together. We love.
Adironate. There it is.
Anyway, it's something we put together. We really love where this came out, and you should be seeing this kind of pretty soon. Actually, we should be coming out with it. I mean, we were planning on releasing stuff by now, but with all the stuff that's been going on with the virus,
there's been a lot happening.
Hasn't happened yet, but it will very soon. Don't you worry, guys. Got some bards. We got a warlock.
I think we can say with confidence in the next month.
Yeah, for certain.
Sometime in April we'll be.
So yeah, stay tuned on our Discord, and we're gonna give you guys updates as those happen. Pete, I think, is that it, or do we have any? Let's take a final wrap. What's our final feels about this Coven?
I mean, I love it. I love the Feywild, and hags are very that kind of like dark Fey magic. So this was something that was like very much in my wheelhouse and something I would want to play. It's got a lot of like. I think unlike a lot of warlocks, this is a very consistent warlock, which that's something I don't like about warlocks is how quickly they burn through a lot of their stuff and then they're just doing Eldritch Blast. So I made something that I thought was like fun if you want options that you can just keep using over and over again. That's why the turn to toads like that. That's why the you just get the fly speed and stuff. So if you want a warlock that can just kind of keep doing stuff and has a lot of gas, then I think this is a pretty good option for that.
I totally agree. I'm very excited to see this join the game. And one of the things that I think was, I don't know if we directly mentioned it here, I think it was in the relationship with your Coven deal section. It's something that Deep Forgotten One mentioned in the chat, is the possibility that your character is the daughter of a hag.
Oh, yes. I included that because you had mentioned it and I thought it was sick.
It's in here. It's in the lore section. We just didn't read it verbatim for the stream. But the vibe for it is what happens is a hag, they will eat like a child or something, right? And they will give birth to a seemingly normal human child. And that child will grow up on its own, and at some point, when I think it's puberty, but I'm not positive, they will suddenly be transformed into a full-fledged hag. I really like the idea of your character potentially being this young girl is just like, oh my god, I'm gonna become a hag. Oh, I have to stop this, right? Like, and you're slowly getting these hag powers, and you're like, oh no!
Oh my god! Like, and the Coven's curse works so well with that too. Of like, a wart. I see a wart.
I know, right?
Oh, that's really good.
Personally, if I were doing this, what I would probably do is like every so number of levels, like every like 3 levels maybe, I'd roll on a new curse to get to just add to the curse pile.
What you're saying, Jeremy, was actually originally in this. It was every time you got a class feature, you got another curse, and then I thought maybe that was a little bit too heavy-handed.
Oh, that sounds so good to me, though.
I thought I would like that, but I didn't know if other people would like that. So also tell us if you think that's cool, because that's a thing I could put back in.
Well, it doesn't need to be there for people to do it. We've all the tools are here. Anyway, I think that just about wraps us on the Coven.
Yeah.
Pay attention. We're going to be coming out with it shortly.